I'm Chef Burt Bakman, and you're listening to Ingredient Insiders.
This is Ingredient Insiders. I'm John Magazzino.
And I'm Andrea Parkins.
On each episode of Ingredient Insiders, we will be talking with chefs and food writers about their favorite ingredients.
We'll then be speaking to the producers of those ingredients to talk about their history, how they're made, and why chefs love using them in their kitchens.
Here we are in Los Angeles, California, Andrea.
Woo!
The weather is beautiful, the sun is shining, and we are talking about an ingredient. You must love this ingredient.
I mean, this is something that I grew up with,
Right?
on all the Jewish holidays.
Yep.
My mom, who, love you, Mom, but you're not a great cook. This is
Yep.
one thing that she actually could
Why
cook.
do you have to insult your mother's cooking on the show?
Because she owns it.
I bet she made a nice whatever
She
we're
did.
talking about
If
here.
I told you her secret ingredient, you would laugh. But
Yeah.
yes, brisket is the ingredient we're talking about today. Near and dear to my heart. Absolutely love, and it brings back so many memories for me from my childhood and family gatherings, and it's just a delicious cut of beef.
It is the cut of beef that is used, correct me if I'm wrong, pastrami, corned beef,
Corned beef,
straight up brisket, obviously.
right?
Why is it so
It's ground
delicious?
up in burgers sometimes.
Yes.
There's a lot of applications for brisket.
It's the B in the CBS burger, right?
Chuck brisket short rib.
Chuck brisket short rib. Got it.
Yep, that's our CBS burger.
Delicious. So the other amazing part about this episode, we are going to be talking with one of Los Angeles's great barbecue chefs, a guy named Burt Bakman. He's a brisket whisperer.
He's such a cool story. Israeli guy who was not in the food industry at all. I
think he was a real estate agent.
Yes. He's going to tell us, I'm sure, his whole story on how he got into, cooking barbecue. I read that it was something just like this podcast that came from COVID, but his barbecue, is phenomenal.
He was basically a home barbecue aficionado, super passionate about what he was doing, and he turned it into a business. So he's got Slab Restaurant in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Just a great story. And then, can I get a drum roll?
Yeah.
Do we have a drum roll here? We have Deb Give Up the Funk from Westholme Wagyu, this beef company in Australia that is just producing incredible products. And their brisket. Have you tried this brisket?
I've tried the brisket. It's outstanding. I mean, you talk about brisket as is. It's a fattier cut,
Yep.
which is what makes the pastrami so flavorful and why it's so good in burgers, to add that, fat content to it. A Wagyu brisket, next level, John.
Yeah, so Deb Funk is coming in to speak with us all about Westholme Wagyu. She is a beef expert, and this is going to be just one of those awesome episodes.
I can't wait. All about brisket with Westholme Wagyu and Chef Burt Bakman.
Los Angeles. This episode is in partnership with The Chef's Warehouse and produced by Gotham Production Studios in New York City. What a thrill to be in Los Angeles, Andrea, today with Burt Bakman, the chef of Slab BBQ. He also has another restaurant called Santolina in the Beverly Hilton.
Santolina at the roof of the Beverly Hilton. Started as a pop-up, and we're still popped
Is that
up.
barbecue too?
No, it's Mediterranean.
Nice.
It was supposed to be an Israeli kind of a cafe. You know what? We'll make it less contentious and call that Mediterranean.
Cover the whole
But there's definitely,
Mediterranean.
there are familiar things to anybody who travels through that area. There'll be familiar dishes and things.
I love it. Did you grow up in Israel?
I grew up in Israel until the age of 13. And then I moved over to over here, to Los Angeles.
Straight to LA.
Where in Israel?
Haifa.
Nice.
The Haifa
In the north?
area. And it's some of the suburbs of Haifa. Kiryat Motzkin. Kiryat Motzkin is like a little town. It's great, small town, and where a lot of people knew each other. Amazed. Some of the best falafel you'll find in all of Israel.
Yum.
Over there. It's incredible.
I thought you were going to tell me it's some of the best Texas barbecue in the world that nobody knows about.
It's it's amazing to see, though, that there's Texas barbecue that is popping up in Israel as well. So
Wow.
I think the Texans should be very happy, very proud. I know some of them are not, but that has traveled outside of Texas But a lot of people out there are doing a great service.
Well, today's ingredient is brisket.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's something that's very part of the culture of Judaism.
Yes.
Or Israel. Is it
Yeah.
Israel too? I mean,
Yeah,
well,
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, the Jews brought brisket in the 19th century to Texas when they were facing, a lot of, I'll use the word persecution.
Yep.
They brought it to Texas. And then in the 20th century is when, or kind of in the 50s, when they first opened a barbecue place.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, a lot of European Jews and not that migrated and came to Texas. How exactly they ended up in Texas, I'm not sure, but they came to Texas, opened up the various meat markets. Brisket was, of course, like a cheaper cut, and the smoking came into play to help, preserve and buy some time for these cuts. And these meat markets that you have throughout Texas are really incredible, and they're still there. They're still kind of time capsules that you walk into, just these large spaces, meat market, brisket, the smoke. It's incredible. It's incredible. So brisket is definitely a big part of it. And I recently learned that Korea is actually the largest consumer of brisket.
interesting.
Yeah.
For Korean barbecue.
For Korean barbecue. Yeah. They shave it thin, they freeze it. It's packaged all over, and, strength in numbers. They just go through a lot of it. Stephen Reichland wrote a great book about brisket, and he told me about it, and I was surprised.
So it's very universal. I mean, even corned beef
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
brisket, right?
Pastrami.
The boiled is pot roast. Even do they use brisket in
I
like
think that's like a
England and the UK? Is that what they're
I think it's a different. It could
Like
be
a top
different
round or a
cut,
chuck roast.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe
not
for
brisket.
Yeah. But the brisket is unique. There's two parts. You have the point and the flat.
Yep.
The point is fattier, the flat is more lean. My question for you is, you have your story is so unique and we've read about it. So I don't want to retell the story, but I guess what was that moment like for you? You're a real estate agent,
Mhm.
you're in Texas, you ditched the conference.
That's right. I love it that you know that story. It's true.
Like
Well, let's back up a little bit. You said he's a real estate agent?
it was a real
Yeah,
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's back up because this is not a unique,
Yeah.
normal story.
Yeah, I mean, I was like reading this.
You moved to LA. Let's start at this. You moved to LA at 13.
Yeah. Moved to LA at 13, just discovered convertible cars, blonde girls,
Yes.
lockers, Pepsi.
What kind of lockers?
The school lockers that you have
Oh,
that you
yeah,
guys take for
those are
granted.
cool.
We did not have it in Israel.
Yeah.
It was something that we saw on the grassy.
You have to carry your
Could you
books.
ever
have to
remember
carry it.
Yeah.
your combination?
There's no-
I still remember it because I had 18 and 36, which were both
High.
and double high. So
Yeah.
they're both memorable numbers. And recently I went and I visited. The combination's been changed.
Where'd you go to high school?
Birmingham High School, right here in LA, in Van Nuys. It was awesome.
Very
And
cool.
I came here, discovered all of that. I always cooked. I just, as of late or the last 15 or so years, I've definitely have been cooking a lot more than in the previous 15, having moved in with my girlfriend, my wife. She started to cook. Then I realized that maybe I should start doing a few things. And I've always cooked. And I was in the music industry. I was in the music business. I've traveled. I toured with some acts, which was exciting. And I was always a food guy. I was very curious and interested, and I would travel around and eat different things. And I have some other friends that are also as crazy about it as I am. From the music industry, I got into the real estate world. I was working with, with Ricky Martin, and at that time, this is 1999, 2000 ish, and I was
Living La Vida Loca.
like,
Living La
I was going to
Vida
say,
Prime.
the Ricky Martin.
Okay.
Okay.
the prime living La Vida Loca, and he bought some condo in New York, and I was somewhat, in the sphere of that world and that transaction, and then that's it. 9/11 happened. We had several shows that were booked for that time. Those shows were canceled. We didn't know what was going to happen. And apparently it was drastic enough that I said, I'm going to probably get out of this industry. I'm going to get out of this real estate industry or get out of this music. And I went into this real estate industry after seeing, Ricky's transaction and what was involved. And there was an opportunity that came up. And I did it. I thought to myself, I can go to all the concerts. I get all these CDs anyway. I don't need to do this. And maybe I can make some money. And went into the real estate world and was doing that. I was involved in that world for 20 years.
Wow.
And yeah, we did some real estate. And then about 7, 8, 9 years ago, I went for some conference. There was a company that was trying to recruit me, to lure me in, hey, come and see it. We have a big conference in Austin, Texas. Wanted to go to Austin, wanted to have some barbecue. Sure, let's do it. It's a free trip. Come, we'll put you up at the Four Seasons. We'll do this or that. We'll fly you out. Come check us out. I went to Austin, and before the conference started, I love this story. Before the conference started, I went for some barbecue. I remember Ironworks in Austin, and I went there, and then I realized that everybody who's part of the conference has this red bracelet, and I see a gentleman sitting by me with the red bracelet. Hey, where are you from? From Arizona, whatever. And they said, look, if you really want good barbecue, you got to go to this other place. So I did. And then again, I met some people, got some information from them, from Michigan. This is what they love, these ladies, the foreclosures, whatever it was. And I just kept bouncing around. And I was so tired after eating it, and I went to sleep. Did not make it to the conference at all that day. But I had to go meet the group that is hosting me, that invited me to Texas. I can't be rude and not show up to their dinner. At that point, I come to the dinner, and none of them have seen me in the conference. It's a large conference, but none of them have seen me. And like, so what, have you seen it? What would you like? And I said, man, the ladies from Arizona with their foreclosures, it was very interesting. And the guy from Michigan. so like, never doubted it. So the remaining of that weekend, I did the same play. And then several years afterwards, they kept inviting me to this thing, and I kept going. Never once, and I made it a point to never go into the.
So you're playing hooky from the conference.
I played hooky from the conference. I felt guilty. I did join the company. After everything I put them through, I did join the company. We had a great relationship, and it worked out great. They definitely benefited from it, so it wasn't a loss for them. And but that's how it was. And then through my travels through Texas of doing this, I met a lot of great people, got into it, and I was really interested in experiencing barbecue, experiencing, what the smoker feels like to open the doors, what slicing just these large, because at that point, steak is the largest piece of meat I've ever cut.
So you weren't making brisket at home.
I started after my first visit.
Yeah.
I came home, I got a green egg, and just started.
What was that first time like?
It was amazing, because there was something about the smell of the rendering fat and the oak that's smoking, and especially when it's a good clean smoke and not a dirty smoke. You have a good clean smoke and this fat rendering. It's something amazing. Some people click with it and get it, and some people don't, which is okay. But there's something about it, and it was that experience that took me to those first times in Texas, sitting there eating it. And I remember feeling and understanding that barbecue is more than just eating it. It's like a state of mind. I realized
it's like an experience. It is
an experience, and it doesn't have to be meat. It doesn't have to be a whole pig and things like that. It can be vegetables. It can be other things.
I think the sides are important.
Sides are very important.
Yeah.
And I do events with this girl who does all her desserts on a grill and a smoker and things like that. So it's not limited to beef, but it's a state of mind. It's something that's very communal, brings people together. It's something that I enjoy. And I wanted to bring it here, to have that experience here, because when I came here to LA, I realized
it doesn't exist.
On that first trip to Austin, did you go and wait in line at Aaron Franklin's?
I did. I did. I don't remember if Franklin's was on my first visit. I got to assume it was. I was there on my first visit. And yeah, I stood in line. I got there early, got in line, 5:30, 6 in the morning, early. And, that's part of the experience. That's part of, if you've gone to Franklin and you've had it, but you've never been in that line, you're missing out on something. If it's not, it shouldn't be beneath you to wait in that line. It's a great experience. You're standing in line with people that are like-minded. People are just as crazy as you to get in line. You're invested in it emotionally, by waiting 2, 3, 4 hours.
We're
to
in
eat
this together.
We're in this together.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's so many great memories that were made there. So it was great. We sit there. I've done it several times. Now I don't wait in that line.
He's
But
a VIP now.
I'm VIP.
He's not
Yeah,
waiting.
he's going to the back door.
I am VIP now, but I also don't eat as much barbecue, so I don't really, take advantage of that. But yeah, Franklin's great.
When did you meet your barbecue brother?
My barbecue brother,
Who's his barbecue brother?
Leonard Botello.
Leonard Botello. Well, I love that you bring it up. He's definitely my barbecue brother. We tell each other that if we realize that something is about to happen, that are we calling our wives or are we deleting our text history? What are we? What do we call it? If we have one play. He's definitely my barbecue brother. He's one of my best friends. I was fortunate enough to be his I think his best man when he got married. It was great. I got to give the speech. It's a funny speech. And when I got my first proper smoker, I found somebody on Craigslist. I needed a proper smoker, not just a green egg. I needed an offset smoker. And I found this guy in Joshua, Texas, found him on Craigslist. And he had these smokers. And I PayPal'd this guy out of nowhere.
Sight unseen.
Yeah.
Sight unseen. Sent him $3,000. Thinking to myself, what did I do? My wife said, listen, go for it. And I got this smoker. And then I heard about this guy who has a great barbecue joint in Texas, who learned on YouTube, learned online, is still learning. He's great. And I just messaged him out of nowhere on Facebook, messaged him like, hey, man, I just got this smoker. I don't even know how to turn it on. How do I get this going? What do I do here? And he showed me how to light a fire. So as much as we make fun and we joke around, I definitely, I owe him a lot. We do a lot. We travel all over the country now. We do so many events. It's incredible. And we still have it, if I ever get a little too comfortable and I start talking some smack to him.
He reminds you of your roots.
He'll send me.
Remember that Facebook message?
He goes to that Facebook message and he scrolls back and sends me a screenshot like, showed you how to light a fire.
Keeping you grounded.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And yeah, that's how we did it.
And how long was it before you actually met?
Probably about a little less than a year. I went to Texas on one of my trips, and we had someone mutual, a friend, and we went and we saw him, and we've been our mascot.
Yeah.
and yeah, we met. Now we talk all the time. Yeah, he's
That's
great.
awesome.
He's great. He's really he makes the most incredible barbecue.
Does he have
As-
a barbecue business in Texas?
He does. Truth Barbecue is
I've heard of
in
it.
Brenham. Yeah. Incredible, top rated Texas Monthly barbecue joint. And it is every 4 years a list comes out of the best barbecue places in Texas. It's a very stressful list that comes out. Daniel Vaughn, who is the editor of Texas Monthly, puts it together. He's an accountant in his background, but traveled around and became a barbecue expert. And it was number 10 before, I think. Now it's number 3 or 4. But all of your favorite barbecue guys claim as that to be their favorite barbecue.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so Brenham, small place off of a highway, beautiful, true barbecue type of a joint. And then he's got one in the Heights in Houston. Incredible space with a pit room that is something that you dream about. With 5 huge 1,000-gallon tanks. It really is a show. Amazing what they do.
Are you, Andrea, are you a barbecue eater? I know.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about food a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
You-
I love.
Have you done the whole Texas thing?
I haven't done the whole Texas thing. I want to be honest.
Yeah.
But I do love barbecue. I think when we were in Portland on our last trip,
Yeah.
that was the first Mike's barbecue.
Yeah.
That was my first,
I don't
thing
know
that
it.
I
Yeah.
ate
Was it
when I
good?
went to Portland. It was delicious. I think for me, it's comfort. I love the fact that it's this slow process that kind of you have to, it's like tender love and care. It's not just like this quick thing that you can like season and go. Like there is a science. There is a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it.
It's a relationship that you develop with it. You form with it, It really is a relationship. It's a dance. It's an equation. The weather, the wind, the humidity, so many things that go into it. And it's a relationship.
It's a labor of love.
It is definitely
and when you're eating
a labor
it,
of love.
You're like, this took hours to make.
Hours.
And I know from selling brisket that there's a lot, you get a piece of meat and 60%-ish is loss.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, depends on how you trim it and the temperature that you're cooking it. But yeah, 40 to 60.
Yeah,
50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we'll go 50.
Let's go 50. Yeah, that's something to consider.
What is perfect barbecued brisket? What does that mean to you, is there such a thing?
I look at the color of the slice. When you slice it open. We rest our briskets. I do. Leonard does. Most of the barbecue guys, we rest the brisket. Brisket that doesn't rest long enough, when you slice it open, we find the color to have this grayness that you don't get when the color really rests, and you get these hues of mahogany throughout, which is great.
Do they call those smoke rings?
We like a more delicate smoke ring. When it's a very aggressive smoke ring, to me, it's not visually appealing.
Is it overpowering the flavor?
I think that it's from dirty smoke. I think, but I'm sure somebody with better knowledge would argue that maybe they'll say, they'll go to the various chemical reactions and different things that happen. But I like it to be more subtle. We look at the fat, the way it was trimmed, the way it was rendered. Its color, the color of the fat, the gradients of the fat. So there are things, that I deal with it all the time with our Slab social media team, for instance. They'll get some photos of a tray, and I'll think it's either not the right angle or not the right color, or the fat, you see it not just cascading down at the right way.
But how long is the proper amount of time to rest then?
I rest my brisket for usually around the same amount of time as it cooked. Yeah. So my usual brisket every day is it goes in at about 8 a.m., 9 a.m., no later than 10 a.m. It goes out at about 10 p.m., about 12 hours. It rests until it comes down to about 140 degrees. It's in butcher paper. We wrap it up with some saran. I put it in our CVAP. And it stays there overnight. And then some briskets will get sliced at 11 a.m. Some briskets will get sliced at 6 or 7 p.m. So some of them are in there for close to 24 hours. And they feel nice. They
like
feel,
the longer it rests, the
yeah,
nicer it is.
The color is on the inside. The color on the inside is. And it's just a beautiful thing. So like when you see people slicing brisket, often they'll slice one, slice two, and then they show you the second slice, which we always laugh about. The second slice is you're always going to have the second slice always looks nice. Anyhow, but Leonard and I, coincidentally, we joke around about this second slice thing. And we always say, show me the fourth slice, because this first slice, the second slice will look great. Almost always they'll look great. But it's the third slice, the fourth slice that you can see
it's true colors.
It's true colors, the craftsmanship, the talent of the cook. And also all these barbecue guys, they can tell, if you show me a slice of brisket, I can tell you in what position in the brisket that was. Of course, you can tell flat or point, but where was it in the point, like in that puzzle? And the third and fourth, those are the ones. And look, and there's some people out there that claim that they can tell you when they eat it if it's a right-sided brisket or left-sided brisket.
How?
They claim that, cows get up a certain way, and that there's one side is, it's a pectoral muscle, it's a working muscle, and they claim that, the cow gets up a certain way, and then one side is more work than the other.
So if it's more tender, it's from the one side than the other?
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard that.
Where in California do you get Texas post oak?
So there are a couple of post oak suppliers. There are a couple, and especially with the boom of Texas barbecue, post oak has definitely come up. I had a guy who came one time to the restaurant and said, "Burt, this is great. Everything's great." But he's like, "But you know why this will not be a real, authentic Texas barbecue?" Why? Like, because you're not using post oak. And I thought about it for a second. I thought, like, he's right. And I thought, he's not right. Because there are people all over Texas who are not using post oak. They're using hickory, mesquite, whatever, and are not using post oak. And they're using post oak because that's local to them. That's what they have. I love post oak. The smell of post oak, incredible. I love it. We use California white oak. We use white oak. We have a local father-son team. So we support super local small business. They'll drop off bags and bags of this wood, or when they deliver wood for me at home, I get it by a pallet, by a cord, half a cord, and I'm like the source, because then any one of my friends who needs wood for their barbecue, come on, they load up. But yeah, so there's definitely, and we have a lot of oak in California. So,
well, you said something that I kind of brought me back to another story that I read, or kind of like part of your upbringing. I think we kind of skipped a big chunk.
Yeah, let's go back.
So you said just now that, if your friends need wood, they come to your home.
Yeah.
People used to come to your home to buy your barbecue.
Yeah. Yeah, that was wild. So to clarify, they would come to get barbecue. I never sold it.
Oh, okay.
I never sold it. I was a real estate professional. I never did it for the money. So when I was doing my backyard stuff, I had a box on the side of a Topo Chico, and it was a donation box. Not enforced, not required. No,
Trudy's
Underground barbecue. It was on the side. And you know what? I always got the donations. I always covered my expenses. Because when I was doing one brisket in the green egg, and then figured out how to do two briskets, it was a big, that's fine, and I was doing it all the time. But now, after I got that smoker from Joshua in Texas, now I went from 2 briskets to 11 briskets. It's a big jump. And
you can't eat 11 briskets?
Was your wife asking you questions like, what are you doing with all these briskets?
I was giving it away, the same as I was giving with the other 2 briskets. I was giving them all away. And I would meet my friends. It gave me the opportunity to see friends of mine that I haven't seen in a long time. And, they would see it popping up on whatever it was at the time, MySpace or Facebook. And, I would give it to them. And I would give it to them really in a very drug deal-esque kind of a way. Again, no money. There we go, take it. And that was my thing, And then until one day I landed on a friend of mine that was from the nightlife club world. And I would never see him during the day. I'm telling Brian, I never see you during the day. I'm going to come by. I'll bring it to you. Because he saw me always dropping it off. And I brought it to them. And then he calls his partner over, John Terzian. It was my partner now. And he eats this sandwich, my Trudy special. Trudy was my friend's mom. Another story. And I remember him closing the door behind him. And he says, we want to open a barbecue joint. Why don't you do it with us? And it was not my intention. It was never a thought. It was never,
This was like a hobby at that point.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. And I said, sure. And that's it. And, we mentioned something like slab of brisket. And I remember, he's like, slab, kind of like that scene in Back to the Future when he's like, oh, you're going to be mayor one day. And he's like, mayor, do you remember that scene? He's like, slab, we're going to call it slab. Okay, I just met this guy, just saw Brian. Okay, guys, we'll see you later. And like a week later, they're like, hey, we're going to go look at a few sites. Come with us. And now Slab is just turned 4, and we are opening 3 more locations this year. Incredible. And
where? All
here in LA and Pasadena, right next to our chicken friends, Howlin' Ray's, which is a great chicken crew. In Pasadena, in North Hollywood, and in Woodland Hills. And we're working on grills. We're working on, of course, bottling sauces and different things and projects and large projects, where I barbecue, a ton, a ton and a half of, and that's 2,000-3,000 pounds of meat that I do it for large events. And that's exciting, so.
What do you think about though? Like I'm thinking back to you buying the egg with one brisket.
Yeah.
And now you're
It's
talking
a business now.
Yeah, like
You still love it? Yeah.
yeah, like what's that like?
Good question. It's something that I think about often because, you get to this point where it's a thin line. Then I don't want to cross it. I already eat very, very little barbecue. I eat barbecue when I visit my friends. I'll go to Leonard, I'll have barbecue over there. I'll go to some of my friends here, Moose Craft Barbecue, incredible barbecue. I eat over there. And I don't want to cross that line when it comes to barbecue. I love barbecue. I love my friends, the community, everything that it brought me. I very grateful for it. But yeah, it is a business now. It is a business now. It's not. I'm not in the backyard anymore. Now I have to think about labor costs, food costs, insurance, the city. Marketing. Just keeping. Just there's a lot.
Yeah.
There is a lot. So it's a whole other challenge, and I definitely lean heavily on our group, H-Wood Group, who operates and is running this with me. It's a challenge. It's a whole other world.
Do you fire the green egg up anymore at home?
The green egg, I don't. The dome of my green egg broke several years ago, but I gotta say my backyard is not lacking. It's a little messy, but I have things hanging. I hang meats from the lemon tree, and just light a fire on the dirt on the ground by the grass.
Cool.
It's nice, it's a state of mind, it's got it's very kind of like Francis Mullman, and what he does, which is, I got to cook with a few times, which is incredible.
That's awesome.
I have a video of me giving him some brisket and he was asking questions about it. And it was incredible.
Yeah. So music to real estate to barbecue.
To barbecue and to see what goes next.
What is next? I mean,
I would love to get a studio and paint.
Oh.
thing.
I see there's quite a correlation between food and chefs and art. So, it's nothing special with me. It's just, there's something about it.
What do you look for when you're purchasing brisket? We have a lot of people that are listeners to the show that I'm sure are listening to you. They're home barbecue people.
They're dusting off their green egg.
But also they're like, wow, maybe there's a business in this for me, and taking it to that level. But for someone who is making home barbecue or a restaurant, what is the ideal brisket? What does that piece of meat look like?
Yeah. Well, they're like snowflakes. A lot of times I say, they're no two are alike almost. I look for first the size. Look for them to be about 13, 14 pounds. I look for a fat layer, a fat cap on it. Ideally, it's consistent all the way over it, so it's completely covered in fat. I look for a thicker, if possible, a thick flat at the end of it. Because if I'm cooking it at home, I'm gonna have so much of the trim, and it's not enough, to collect for sausage or something. Not everybody has a grinder, because you can grind it and use it for a different sauce bowl.
Are you making your own sausages?
I do, yeah. Of course. We've had various opportunities to use some other sausages, but we definitely make our own sausages.
We need to go before we leave.
Please
and try
do.
This.
Please come by. Yeah, we make variety of sausages. That's something that is actually, I love to leave it to the guys in the kitchen, and I tell them, whatever you want, make any sausage you want, anything. You smelled something, you ate something, you're inspired by something, whatever you want. Let's make those sausages. So they have some ownership of it, and honestly, their kitchen and the restaurant is theirs just as much, so they're incredible. But
sorry to interrupt. I just got excited.
No, absolutely. Yeah. But size, fat, shape. A lot of times they come, sometimes they come completely mangled, and from the processing, and they're. I've had briskets where the flat part was completely split open, like two loins. It looked like two loins. I've had them completely butchered, and sometimes, for the most part, I think they come out very nice. So definitely look out for the size.
Are there brands that you go to? or like companies that you're procuring from? Like a Westholme or
Westholme is great. Westholme beef is incredible.
Is that Australian Wagyu?
Australian Wagyu, my God, it's incredible. We've done a few dinners with them and events. I use Westholme for most of my events. When I'll do a special event, I use Westholme. Westholme's incredible.
Is that fattier, more marbled beef better for brisket, or do people want something leaner? What is
for brisket? I think a good prime, a good choice would be great. Because you have good fat on top, you have good fat throughout. It doesn't need to be snowy. It doesn't have to be Wagyu. It doesn't have to be necessarily like A5 or olive or things like that I see sometimes. Good prime, good choice. Will do. I've done some Westholme's briskets. Westholme, incredible product, I gotta say.
We love Westholme.
We do.
Let's talk about your rub.
Yep.
What are you doing for the rub? I spent an afternoon in Taylor, Texas a few years ago with Wayne Mueller.
Of course, good friend of mine.
And he really was telling me a lot. That's Louis Mueller Barbecue.
Cathedral.
The Cathedral of Smoke.
The Cathedral. Always.
What a place to visit.
Incredible. That family is very intense family.
Just outside of Austin. Yeah. His sister Leanne.
Yeah.
I'm Lala Barbecue now. But he was telling me about the pepper, how important the pepper was. Talk to us about your rub.
So my rub is very similar to what Wayne uses. For the most part, it's 50-50 salt and pepper. But my pepper, I break up into different mesh numbers. So it's a finer and thicker. The Louis Mueller, very thick pepper. Incredible. And my salt is also a breakup of kosher salt and Lowry's salt. So that's the mix. It varies,
The Lowry seasoning salt?
Yeah, so Lowry seasoning and kosher salt to make up the 50% salt, and then variety of peppers to make up for the peppers. Sometimes it varies. Sometimes there'll be something that's laying around. At home, especially, I throw in allspice. I'll throw in some, sometimes some granulated garlic, dehydrated amba, which is like this pickled mango kind of a condiment that sauce that you use in around the world, which is great. Very common with shawarma and falafel and things like that.
Have you done za'atar?
Love za'atar, not in the brisket.
Okay.
Not with the brisket. Use za'atar with everything else. Love za'atar, of course. But salt, salt and pepper. I get so many rubs sent to me. And then I accumulate bags. Then I give them out, and I never throw it away. I give it out. And a lot of times, what I do is actually I'll take a bunch of these rubs, put them together in one bowl, and then repackage just one big mix of this custom rub.
Yeah.
Give it out to people. But salt and pepper.
Love it.
But at night, Slab turns into a steakhouse.
Slab turns into a steakhouse.
And you're using the rub.
So it turns into a steakhouse, but it's not a regular thing.
Okay.
It's not a regular thing, and it's not really, just for everybody. It's the week goes along, and especially if it's a good week, I'll start texting some people and say, hey, sidewalk Thursday, 8 p.m. And I bring with me a variety of steaks, variety of different cuts, Westholme, whatever it may be, different things. And the different friends of mine, the different chefs will come. They come after work when they're done with their service. And Kevin Meehan, for instance, from Cali, great restaurant, great chef, he brings over some dried squabs, incredible. Tim Hollingsworth over in Otium, he'll bring, whatever he has, some lamb, he has something. These other guys bring wine, some kind of wine.
Like industry potluck.
Industry kind of a thing, yeah. If people have something, they bring some. You don't have to bring anything, but they bring, Wolfgang Puck will bring something else. This guy brings something else. And we sit there and people drinking wine and we're hanging out and we're grilling and such a good time. We want to turn it into something. We want to do it's an idea that we've been talking about for a while. This is literally just setting up Conroe grills, binchotan, charcoal. Yep. We sit on the front, wine, we're hanging out, no money involved. Everyone's just hanging out. We're talking about guests.
This is so great. It's such an LA thing.
Yeah.
Too.
How do we get on the text list?
Just really chefs coming together. you're not, you're not competitors. There's not this like ego battle between you, but you're all coming in, you're hanging out. I kind of always get that vibe when I come to LA that the chefs here really kind of support one another, and you're doing fun stuff that
it's awesome.
They're not doing that in a lot of other places around the world.
They're not doing that in New York City, John.
No,
it's unfortunate, and they should do it. They should do it because we do it, and it's great. But we will turn Slab into a steakhouse at night. We'll put white linen. We'll bring in candles. We'll change the music. We'll dim the lights. We have a grill. We'll bring some things, and it's something we're working on now. It's gonna be awesome. I love
that. It's so cool.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Well, the time has come.
Yeah.
We could talk for hours here.
I could talk to you forever. I really could.
Yeah, brisket's a long time.
But I know you've been waiting for me to ask you your 5 pantry staples.
I was thinking about my pantry staples, and I realized as I was thinking about it, that it's always an answer that would always change because I see you in a month, and it will be different. It's not Calabrian chili like some of your guests have, or anchovies, which though I love anchovies, but aside from obvious salt and good olive oil that people have and butter, it's good to hear how many people keep it on their counter. I have my tare, which is the dipping sauce, common in yakitori. My tare, I have a tare that's been going since 1961. I wasn't the one to start it, but I've had one going for several years, and then met, some people who have some going there as well, and they gave me some of theirs that I married. So I have a tare that's since 1961.
Wait, explain to the listeners what exactly tare is. It's not soy sauce.
It's not just soy sauce. It's amazing. Tare is really, which probably would have been my favorite ingredient to talk about, which is thyme, the Time.
Yep.
Tare is a mix of mirin and sugar and soy sauce, and some sake, and it's you cook that together. You cook off the alcohol, and you dip your chicken sticks. Yakitori, you dip your chicken sticks, whatever protein you're cooking, you dip it into that. And as time goes by, the liquid absorbs some of the fats and the flavor from whatever it is that you're cooking, and it takes its own shape. And then you have to clean it, sanitize it, strain it. And then I have a batch, and I always keep a backup. God forbid I lose it, I spill it, something. So I have a backup. And then look, sometimes I'll throw in a stick of cinnamon, some allspice, some whatever, and to give it a slightly different life. It actually, today I was supposed to come here. I turned around because I had to pick up my tare for something for later. Don't leave home without it. Okay. So I had to. And so tare is something that I use a lot. I use it for vinaigrettes. I use it for when I cook for my kids. They love it.
It reminds me, like, as you're talking about it, like sourdough starter. Like how you...
It does. And that does always come up. Although, I can give you a sourdough loaf with a 50-year-old starter. You won't necessarily tell the difference between the starters. But it's also something so romantic to think about, that this is something that's been passed down from generations. Right. Jamon Iberico fat. I go through several legs in December. And so all the fat I keep, there's zero waste with that leg, especially if it's a $1,500 leg.
What do you like to do with that fat?
So the fat, I render it completely, and then I blend it again with the rendered fat and the liquid that I got from it. And I strain it, and it's just this gold caramel, liquid gold. And if you think about it, this is $100, a pound fat.
It's like the non-kosher schmaltz.
Yes,
it is. So yes, I've used it before.
That's awesome reference, John.
Absolutely. So I've used it before for matzo balls instead of chicken schmaltz, instead of chicken fat. We used that. And I use it to brush on steaks, on proteins. So I brush it. That I've been going through this koji phase, but I hate myself every time I say it, because when I see it on menus or I hear people talk about it, I find, to me, it's like so obnoxious sometimes, like koji. Right. But yet I have some koji stuff going on myself. So I have this koji that was blended with Parmesan and a little bit of water. And that liquid, you brush it on anything. I can take a plain piece of choice steak and I brush it with that, and you think it's dry aged and it's beautiful. And so so that's great. I have this amazing anchovies that I got from the cheese store here in Beverly Hills. That's always sits on my counter, and a good block of cheese. I dehydrate chunks of Parmesan that sits on my counter, and I cut them into small pieces, into small little cubes, and I throw them into whatever I'm cooking, and they will crunch up a little bit, and the inside is just soft and cheesy. And just flavor bombs that my kids love.
You should invite Andrea and I over your house for dinner tonight because I can tell that what's going on is really special.
This is my I'm going to say top 3, John, conversation that we have had. I'm serious, because I don't want to offend any of our other
No need to offend
guests, but honestly, you are super inspiring. What you're doing, and you just it's all about flavor, and there's no limits.
There's no limits.
It's awesome, really.
I appreciate you saying that, but I'm interested. I'm curious.
The curiosity is, I think, what fuels what we all do.
Because there's no end to it.
Correct.
There's no end to it. And I've been around some great people, from Aaron Franklin to Wolfgang Puck and others, and I see that they stand around and they're watching to see, maybe I can learn something from this. Maybe there's something they're not coming in, but hey, I'm XYZ. I know everything. Let's see what this guy's doing. What can we learn from this guy? Mm-hmm. And that's very, very interesting, So it's very curious. But yeah.
Can I ask you one more question?
Of course.
And I'm sorry if
no.
Has anyone reached out to you on Instagram to kind of that you've thought, that was me once when I reached out?
Yes. I get it, and it's incredible. It's never beneath me. I always take the time. I always encourage. Do it for barbecue. Don't do it to become a celebrity, or ask what you can do for barbecue. Not what barbecue can do for you. Kennedy said. I think that's what he meant to say.
That's what he was talking about.
That's what he was talking about.
Are there up and comers that you know of?
Yeah, there was a guy that I was just talking to. He had this Munchies video. I saw this guy in New Jersey did this video, and I messaged him. I found him on Instagram. I said, "Hey man, I just saw your video. Incredible. I'm so happy to see it. I've gone through the same thing. People try to shut me down. No, the community loves us. We're not getting shut down." Messaged me a couple of days ago, I just got shut down. I can't believe it. Man, you're going through I know exactly what you're going through. You have to really ask yourself if you want to do it, because it is a lot of work. But I do get those messages all the time. People send me photos of their whatever they're cooking, which is great. No matter what it looks like, I always encourage them. I talk to them. I invite people to WhatsApp me and message me. I'll go through the process with them. It's great. It really is awesome to do it. And I'm always flattered when anybody will ask me.
I have 2 last questions.
Yeah.
Is there a bias about you making Texas style barbecue in California? Obviously you've got, it's the home of this type of barbecue, particularly for brisket. Is there any reason why you can't make great barbecue outside of Texas?
No, definitely not. And yeah, I do see it sometimes where people think you cannot have a barbecue California. They don't know about barbecue. But happy cows come from California, right? That's what they say. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason why we don't. We have great weather. We have great produce. We have great beef, even though this beef comes, from Omaha or wherever it's coming from anyway. And we have some barbecue places here in LA and in California that will keep up with any barbecue that you have in Texas, Carolinas, Kansas, wherever. And it's incredible. And I think for the most part, everybody in Texas should be very happy to see that, and because there's a lot of crappy barbecue in Texas, there's a lot of crappy barbecue here. But I think that California is definitely moving on and on and on, and is doing Texas very, very proud. They should be very happy.
Awesome. My last question is, because you were talking about a lot of ingredients in your pantry that were Japanese in origin. Is there anybody doing great Texas style barbecue in Japan that you know of?
In Japan, No,
I don't know if you've been there or not.
No,
And
I've not been to Japan, and not that I know of. I'm sure somebody is doing it because American culture is so big in Japan.
Yeah.
So I gotta assume that somebody is doing it. Off the top of my head, I can't think
I
of
was
it.
just curious. I asked the question because I have friends in the pizza business and some other industries, even wine now, where I was shocked when I was in Tokyo years ago and a friend of mine called me who's a pizza consultant. He was like, I'm coming to Japan. I was like, what are you doing in Japan? He said, I'm going to have the best pizza on the planet. I was
Yeah.
like, in Japan, in Tokyo? He's like, yeah. And that, it turns out 5 of the best, pizza places in the world are in Japan. And I'm wondering, is there someone like a young Burt Bakman in his backyard who's getting these really exquisite cuts of Japanese Wagyu, and they're, trying to learn and perfect Texas style barbecue?
That'd be pretty
there?
cool.
I bet there's somebody.
There has
I'm
to
sure.
be.
I'm
I
sure
mean, there
somebody,
has to
and
be.
I'm sure there is. And if they hear it, please, I look. Message me.
Yeah, let's go
If you're
visit.
listening, please message us.
But I see it. They have it in Israel. They have it in Egypt. They have it in England. They have it in Germany.
Who doesn't like, other than vegetarians and vegans, a great salty, fatty slice of beef? I mean, there's nothing better to me. Like, it's just,
especially when it's done right with just a good piece of white bread and a couple slices of rinsed white onions.
damn.
Perfect.
Andrea, let's go.
Let's go right
Slab
now.
BBQ.
Slab BBQ.
We're going. Thanks so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Great conversation.
Thanks for
Amazing.
having me.
It is a great day in New York, Andrea. Do you know why?
Because we have Deb Funk, the Vice President of the Americas from AACO, in the house.
Yeah, AACO is Westholme Wagyu. What is AACO?
Sure. I'm so happy to be here, first and foremost.
Thank you.
We're psyched to have you.
Awesome. Thank you. AACO is the Australian Agricultural Company, and Westholme is our brand of F1 Wagyu.
If you don't know what Westholme is at this point, and you are in the food business, you need to learn. Talk to us. It's an incredible Wagyu beef coming from Australia. How long has the company been around?
So the company's been around since 1824.
Oh,
So we are
Really?
approaching our 200-year anniversary.
wow.
I didn't
Next
know
year.
that.
How many
Yeah.
years in the United States?
So that's a good question, a bit loaded because we've come in and out a few times. But I would say I've joined the company nearly 4 years ago, and we've really made a hard push into the U.S. with Westholme since then.
Have they always been focused on Wagyu, or have they?
So not for 200 years. No.
Okay, I was going to say.
I even want to say, before we even dive into that stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even know. They hear the term Wagyu and they hear Kobe beef.
Yeah, I'd love
Explain to us, like, what is
myth busting.
What is
Yeah.
Wagyu? I know it's a Japanese word, but what is
Absolutely.
Wagyu?
The actual word translates into Japanese cow, right?
Okay.
So it's a terminology. It's not necessarily a breed. There's actually 4 breeds under the umbrella of Wagyu: Japanese black, Japanese red, Japanese pulled, etc. And so the majority of the Wagyu that you see is going to, in the U.S. that is, would be Japanese black, with the exception of some Japanese red. One company in Texas does some. And we have a little bit of Japanese red mixed into our herd. But it is a breed. It's a breed that was originally a working breed. And when they figured out that these animals had a natural propensity to marble, they started raising them for beef. And it really is the most premium, highly marbled beef. If we're talking about Japanese Wagyu, they grade on a different scale. They still use a BMS scale, which is a beef marble score. And that scale goes from 0 to 12. And then they also have other indications. So the most common term I think people know is A5.
Mhm.
And A5 is Japanese Wagyu exclusively, right? That's their grading system. And A5 falls between an 8 and a 12 on the BMS scale.
Got it.
Okay.
So that's
they
the
raise
best
their
of the
animals
best.
differently, very, very differently. And they are actually breeding for fat, right? They want that really intense marbling, almost snowy, fine textured marbling. We have approached this business in a very different way for a number of reasons, which I'll go into shortly. But we are really all about getting a balance between the lean and the fat. We want you to be able to have an experience eating a steak versus the 2 or 3 ounces of the A5 that you can eat, which is so rich, it's almost like foie gras.
Right.
Like
You
it's
can't
just,
really eat a
no.
lot
you
of
really
that.
can't. I'm actually amazed when I hear chefs tell me how many the number of ounces that people come into a restaurant order just because, like,
The gout special.
exactly. That's what we're really breeding for a flavor and a balance. And so, hence F1. So the Japanese Wagyu are 100% Wagyu genetics, or purebred or full blood, as we call it. Whereas Westholme, particularly right now, is an F1 program. We are in the process of launching a Westholme purebred, which is a rebranding of a program we already have, and putting it under the Westholme umbrella. But for the sake of argument right now, I would say Westholme is our F1 brand, and that is a 50-50 cross. So in any scientific evaluation, you would have a first-generation cross is an F1. So it could be in vegetables, it could be, it doesn't matter, any animal, humans even. And that is what our program is.
So you're crossing the Japanese Wagyu with
Australian Black Angus.
No.
I'm just
come on,
making
John.
that up.
So really traditionally and across the board, the majority of people doing F1 Wagyu, which would be all of the ones you know of and you can think of, whether it's Australian, American, or what have you, they breed against Angus or Hereford. So you're not wrong, okay? But that doesn't work for us because of where we're located. So in Australia, we own almost 16 million acres, just 1%, about 1% of the land mass of Australia. And It's all in Queensland and the Northern Territory, which if you're looking at me, you can see I'm using my hands. But if you're not, it's in the top right part of the country. So it's quite hot. It's almost sort of like South Texas from a climate perspective. And things don't grow really well there.
Is it like too hot for Angus cattle?
It's too hot for Angus cattle.
Okay.
Angus cattle are also, because they've got really heavy black hides, they also are not great walkers. And because we have so much land, our animals have to walk. And they have to walk to water.
They have to be
they
like more
have to
fit cows.
They have to be much more fit cows, exactly.
Okay. So what breed is
so
this?
we actually have a proprietary breed called the Mitchell. The Mitchell mom and the Wagyu sires make for our Westholme Wagyu. The Mitchell is 6 different breeds that over the last, call it 40 years, we've refined, and we continue to refine our genetics. But it's an animal that thrives in that environment. So it has some tropical influence, some continental European influence on the beef breed side.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of everything. We take the characteristics that we want from each breed, and we kind of mix it all together in a very scientific way.
Andrea told me.
Genetics.
Andrea told me that these cattle have Australian accents. Is that true? Okay.
I could pretend to moo in Australian. I don't even know how to.
Yeah.
I don't even know where that would look like.
Is that true, Andrea?
They do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. It's really.
Can
cool.
you do an Australian accent for us, John?
G'day, mate.
There you
All
go.
right, perfect.
Call that a knife.
Put another Westholme on the barbie.
There you
Yes.
go. There you go. As much as I hang out and talk to Australians, I literally can't do it still.
No.
No, not at all. I pick up on their really funny nuances, and they say many strange terms.
Give us an example.
Oh, you want a good one? Okay. So instead of schedule or calendar, it's diary.
Okay.
So I'll put time in your diary.
That I could see that. That's like conflicting. Don't touch my diary.
I read Andrea's diary all the time.
All right. So you have this cross of your own breed, the Mitchell cow and
the Mitchell moms and the Wagyu sires. And the Mitchells, by the way, some of the different things that we select for obviously are let's call it athleticism, but there's also, we need them to be really good moms. And to be honest with you, Wagyu are terrible moms. So they're not good mothers. They could take or leave being motherhood. So these Mitchells are amazing because they, A, produce a lot of milk, B, they're really good nurturing animals to their young, et cetera. So really good. And one of the reasons why this is all important is because we have such a vast rangeland that this is all done in the natural. Like this is completely done in the wild. So we have, as a business, have very little interaction with these animals, which is a really beautiful thing. And it's something that's very important to us. We want them to have the most natural and fulfilling life they could have.
Are they allowed to just roam those 17 million acres?
No, it's broken out into 20 properties, which we call stations in Australia.
Yeah.
So ranches call them. But
do you move them around in the 20
stations?
stations?
We do sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so each station, let's say each station sort of has a function within our business, and they kind of work their way down south towards Queensland, where we do our processing. So even our feed yards are going to be just slightly ahead of the processing plants, right? Because we want to obviously keep the range quite as short as possible. But we have some that are breeding properties. We have others that are backgrounding properties. We have so different things happen in different places. There are fences, right? Like it's not, but there's one property that takes 7 hours to get from one end to the other. So like 3 million acres.
That's
one
wild.
property.
Wow.
Yeah. So they really do, like you can drive and not see animals for a long time, and then you'll see a few animals, and then you drive another 30 minutes to see more animals. So it doesn't feel like we have the scale and volume that we have. If you really want to check it out and see the big picture, we go up in helicopters. And sometimes that's how we have to muster them.
Andrea asked me earlier, she was too embarrassed to ask this on the show, but do you ever see kangaroos or wallabies
Or
on the
koalas.
ranch?
Tons and tons
I forgot
of
I said
kangaroos.
koalas.
The kangaroos are like our deer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
So they are so abundant, and they're a nuisance. Like they actually eat all the crops, and they really are the equivalent of our
And people
deer.
eat kangaroo too.
They do. In Australia, they eat a lot. They do eat kangaroo.
Have you had kangaroo?
It's not really to my liking.
Okay. What would you compare it to?
Tastes like chicken.
Everything does.
I was
It's
joking.
it's a little gamier, and I find like I haven't had it a lot, but remember having like kind of an oily,
Okay.
like kind of mouthfeel that I
Yeah.
didn't dig. Yeah.
Andrew prefers wallaby.
What are the cattle eating?
So the cattle are eating ding, 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 Mitchell grass. So the name of the grass is Mitchell grass, hence why we named our mummies the Mitchell cattle. And Mitchell grass is a perennial, so it grows for 20 years. And it basically grows during the wet season, and then in the dry season, it dries out, go figure. And it becomes like almost like straw or hay. And the beauty of it is it grows quite tall, and all the nutrients are in the top 1/3 of grass in general, but this grass specifically. And so because we have so much of it, the cattle can eat the really nutritious part and then keep going around to other paddocks.
Wow. So there's no corn. There's no additional.
So for 2 years, these animals are basically roaming our wild pastures. And then after that, they come into our feed yards. And in the feed yards, they get a proprietary grain blend.
Got it.
And there is grain. There's not corn.
Okay.
So I like to talk about when I'm talking about beef and cattle, et cetera, that it's really 3 things, really 2 things, if you will, from the beef side of things that impact quality beef. And it's really breed and feed, right? So from a breed perspective, we talked about that we have Wagyu sires. And by the way, I didn't back up a little bit from a history perspective. So in 97, the Japanese government said no more live exports, no more cattle can go out live. So we actually have the last herd to exit Japan live.
Oh, wow.
Now, we're talking many years ago, and obviously those animals are not still within in our family. But the reality of it is we've taken those they're the foundation genetics for our herds. There were 4 bulls and 4 steers and 4 bulls and 40 heifers that came over, and they were called the Westholme herd, hence the name Westholme. Where
Got it.
people ask for it.
Very cool.
So our genetics now are actually so much better than that original herd, and that's the beauty of it. We have a full-time genetics team, and all they do is improve and improve and improve.
That's amazing.
So people always say, do you have those original bulls? Well, obviously not because they're old, but even so, kind of the oldest bulls on our property are generally about 4 years old because we're constantly improving the genetics.
Right. I want to jump back to the eatability of this product.
Yes.
So you mentioned A5 and you mentioned BMS score. And then we all agree that you can only eat so much of that A5. It's so rich. It's so
too
fatty.
rich, yeah.
What is the scoring for a Westholme steak? And why is it that you can have a beautiful 16-ounce, ribeye or strip
Absolutely.
loin?
We have 3 tiers under Westholme. We have a 4 to 5, 6, 7, and an 8 to 9 plus. The 8 to 9 plus is our top tier. And actually, you can, in theory, get up to a 12 BMS by visually scoring it, right? However, the Australian government, who grades Wagyu in Australia, that's a unique thing because in the U.S. there's no oversight from like the USDA or any other government body. So it's all in-house grading that takes place. But for us, our carcasses are graded by Meat, which is the equivalent of USDA. And those carcasses, well, I should say the government says they can only be graded at a 9 plus. So we could have a 12, but
You can't go any higher.
Correct. Exactly.
it.
So that's why you get beautiful, beautiful product in our 8 to 9 plus.
So, and now I'm going to throw another, hopefully not a wrench in the gear.
Yeah.
When we talk about USDA grading,
Yep.
which is prime, choice, select, where does this?
Yeah. So prime would fall into a 3 or 4. Probably like a really great prime could get to a 4.
So your
So
stuff
Westholme is like-
But it's significantly better, of course.
so it kind of is occupying the middle ground where it's way more marbled, better conformation than USDA prime.
Yep.
But it's still not as overly fatty. I want to use the
Yeah.
word.
You
Maybe
can
that's
eat
not the
the
best
whole
word.
steak.
You can have a whole
Yeah.
steak. So it has a
Yeah.
sweet spot
So you-
between Japanese beef
And
and
USDA
the top
prime beef, yeah.
USDA prime. Wow,
Exactly.
that's amazing. So it's really like a super steak.
Yeah.
It really is. And so you asked the question of why can you only eat, 2 to 3 ounces of the A5 versus what we do? And it's actually a super simple explanation. So the way that the Japanese production method of Wagyu is it's very small, like farmers will have 4 or 5 animals, right? And they raise them in sheds or in barns, if you will. And they restrict their movement because they want to get them fat, right? So we're just like with humans. If you don't use your muscles, what happens?
Andrea does this with me. She doesn't let me move, sit in the seat, and here we are.
It's the opposite these days.
Thank you.
Looking very trim, John.
Yeah, so they get a bit of muscle atrophy, but more importantly, that's what they're breeding for the fat, right? The internal fat. Whereas we want our animals to live a really amazing life, and they use their muscles because they are going out and walking around and on a daily basis. And so that's the biggest difference, right? Is the mixed genetics, number one, and number two, the fact that they're actually moving around. Yep.
Does the marbling, does that scoring have anything to do with texture? Does it make beef more tender, or is it more just of a flavor?
No, it absolutely impacts.
So it's everything.
Texture. It's everything. You'll notice when you're eating Westholme, this is something that we talk about all the time, is it has a really clean mouthfeel. When you're eating A5, for the most part, not all the time, but I find that it leaves sort of almost a greasy coating in your mouth.
Sure.
The beauty of our product is it really doesn't. It's just clean. It has a clean finish. It's a beautiful expression of our product. Yeah.
Does Westholme, is it available in every type of cut? Can you get a ribeye? Is it the traditional butcher cuts?
Yeah, so we do break the carcasses a little bit differently in Australia. But to answer your question, yes. Theoretically, everything is available. We bring over tongues and tails and cheeks and ribeyes, both bone-in, boneless, short loins, you name it. And then everything from butcher's cuts like skirt and hanger and sirloin flap or bavette, flank, everything.
Amazing.
So if a chef is looking for something specific, you can work with them to figure out that cut and kind of cut it for them.
For sure. Well, so Allen Brothers would be the ones that would generally cut it, right? But we send over subprimals.
Okay.
And so the nice thing also to note about our product is because it's coming a good bit of distance, we don't want to pay freight on excess. So the trim specs of the product is exceptional. So for instance, on our ribeye rolls, which is a lip-off ribeye, you essentially can get 100% yield because all you're doing is cutting steak straight out of it. You don't have to do any butchering. Our tomahawks come Frenched. And knife ready. You don't need a bandsaw because we notch it. You have to notch out the button bones, but the chine's removed. So there's a lot of really good user-friendly items that we offer.
I bet a lot of chefs wonder when, if they're buying this product, does the BMS score show up on the packaging?
It sure does. There's an insert in every cryovac package that shows the marble score.
Great. And is that how Chef's Warehouse sells it? Do we sell it by the score? Like, is there a range?
It's definitely broken down. So the majority of the product that we bring into the U.S. is 6+, so the 6, 7, and 8, 9+, because that's kind of what's the demand is for.
Yep.
I think there used to be a perception a while back that Australian Wagyu is inferior to domestic Wagyu, and I would argue that one of the main reasons was because it was predominantly the low marble score stuff that was coming into the country. And so when we decided to make a new push into the US, we decided that really we want to focus on the high marble score product because we have so many discerning chefs here. And this is really like the culinary mecca. And we want to build a brand here and we want to do it the right way.
Makes
So
sense.
I'm starting to see Westholme on the menus at some of the greatest restaurants in the United States, which is amazing. And that is to me like an indicator. If I see that, I'm ordering that steak. If I'm at a home and I'm a consumer, can I buy this at a retail store? I know can you go on allenbrothers.com and buy it? Like, where can you find it?
There's definitely some product on allenbrothers.com. There's definitely some product on Goldbelly. We have our own page. I think stay tuned. We're looking at doing some other cool stuff. And we do some really neat chef collaborations through Goldbelly. And I think we'll probably do some through Allen Brothers in the near future. We did one with Mei Lin, a meal kit, and we did one with Ludo for the LA market.
Yeah.
I won't even, Chris Yaman
Yeah, don't worry.
from Night Market.
Yep.
So anyway, so that's a kind of a cool thing we're doing as well. We're getting ready to do one with Fly by Jing, with Jing from Fly by
So
Jing.
that's great. So these are things that people at home can buy and cook at home.
What is on the horizon for Westholme? You I feel like you guys are very, every 4 years you're working on genetics, and I think it sounds to me like a company that's like very innovative and
100%.
forward thinking. So what are the trends?
I can give you a couple of things that are really cool that we're very excited about. So we really do pride ourselves on being at the forefront of sustainability, animal welfare, and all the other things. I personally, someone who's been in the beef industry for a really long time, I think I look to Australia to kind of set the trends in terms of growth in the beef industry and better beef.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we are doing is pretty cool, and it's really in beginning stages. We just finished our first flavor profile test, but there's a product called Asparagopsis.
Okay.
And Asparagopsis is a red seaweed that a company called Sea Forest, who we're in partnership with, The founder is just one of those really geeky, awesome guys, and somehow put 2 and 2 together that this Asparagopsis, when fed to cattle, can reduce methane emissions.
Wow.
That's very cool.
Like significantly.
That is really cool.
So we just completed the first round, which is a 300-day feeding protocol. Did the testing. If you want to know how do you test for methane emission reduction, it's pretty awesome. They put a cow in a glass room because it all has to do with emissions.
Yeah.
That's how you test them. That's one thing that's very cool that's kind of on the horizon is a methane, you can't say methane free, but a significantly methane reduced.
How much,
beef.
is there like a percentage reduction that you're aiming for?
Yeah, I think TBD on that. I think any improvement is an improvement.
Yeah, of course.
Originally, I've heard numbers that were, 75, 50. I don't know where we're going to land. I actually don't know. But more importantly, we wanted to make sure that it didn't impact the flavor of the beef, right? Because that's great if it is sustainable, but not so great if it makes the beef taste funky. And it didn't. And there was absolutely no indication. So really exciting stuff.
We do need to talk about you. Because
Okay.
you're a badass in this world.
Well, thank you. So the other one is polled Wagyu. So all cattle are born with horns, right? And in every cattle operation, you have to dehorn cattle. It's not a great experience. Like it's a surgery, essentially. And everybody wants the best for their animals. And so you give them as much pain medicine and stuff. But we know it's a really kind of a gruesome scenario. So we are actually breeding our purebred cattle without horns.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
How did you get into the beef business in the first place?
I feel like there's not many women, and I just want to call that out, that it's a man's world.
100%.
And like,
Less so now than when I got into it, but yeah, 100% it is. You know what? I've been a passionate foodie, restaurateur, loved F&B my whole life. I naturally have a degree in sociology and criminal justice that I've put to no use.
Right.
But I've always loved dining, fine dining. I mean, I'm just a huge foodie and love to cook. And that was sort of, I decided after college where my passion was. I was running restaurants anyways and wanted to still be involved in the business without running restaurants. And so a dear friend of mine who's a chef and restaurateur said, before you make any decisions, because I was probably more heading in the direction of wine, she said, why don't you talk to my meat guy? And she set us up and he said, I can put your resume on the right desk, but that's about all. And I don't really know you anyways. So, no problem. And it kind of went from there. And then I would call it, 50-50 talent and luck because I was really successful quite early in it and progressed my career. Yeah.
it's amazing.
Thank you.
There's one thing that you said that you didn't get to finish because, John interrupted you. But you said there's two things about breed and feed.
Yeah, sure. Great.
So we didn't finish
Let's go
feed.
back to feed.
I
Yeah.
want to go back to feed.
Sure. So we all know the comment or the term, you are what you eat, right? No brainer there. We also probably, you guys, I'm assuming, know the term terroir, yeah, which we normally apply to wine. But it talks about the provenance and how the provenance of where things are grown or come from impacts what they are and how they taste.
Sure.
And we talk about the Mitchell grass original. We're talking about that. And I think that has a big piece of it. And again, most people who raise cattle in Australia are not raising them where we are raising them. And very, very few people are raising Wagyu. So when you're talking about, call it the competitors or, the people that also are producing Wagyu in Australia, the vast, vast majority is coming from kind of the southern region, New South Wales, which has much different grass, right? So this Mitchell grass is unique to Queensland and where we are. So that's one piece of it. And then as I mentioned, when they're ready, we put them into our feed yards, which are really nice. They go for walks. I mean, it's a really good life. It's quite different from the way that we handle cattle here in the U.S. They get a blend of predominantly sorghum.
Okay.
So sorghum is what grows well where we are over there. Corn does not, just pretty basic fundamentals. But our feed blend also has barley, which is what the traditional feed is for Japan.
Okay.
To give you context. Also steamed oats. And then we use 30% human non-consumables to reduce our farming footprint.
Okay.
So again, a sustainability initiative. So that can be almond husks, macadamia hulls, cottonseed, all good stuff for roughage. And then everything is bound together with molasses to make it really palatable for the animals. And it really, truly does smell and taste like a granola bar. So it is a Wagyu granola bar.
Wow, that's so cool.
And all of these things, sorghum being sort of sweet and nutty in and of itself, obviously molasses for sure, impacts the flavor of the beef. And you
gonna
do
say, do you
get this
taste
very
that?
sweet finish. It's
Yeah.
it's incredibly beefy. The product is very, very beefy in a beautiful way. And then the finish, again, clean, no lingering taste. We've actually done a flavor wheel, which is pretty cool. Mostly flavor wheels are coffee, wine, etc. But we did the first Wagyu flavor wheel. And
Could you send me that?
yeah.
Okay, send it to me.
Absolutely. And
We're going to put it on our website.
awesome. And you get a lot of like caramelization. You get kind of yeasty toasted bread notes. So there's a lot of different cool things that you can pick out as a result of the feed.
So I had a very lucky invitation a couple of weeks ago to go to Laser Wolf at the Hoxton Hotel in Brooklyn, where Deborah put on a dinner with Westholme Wagyu.
Very nice.
And they did a pastrami style Wagyu brisket. Talk to us about that. So can this be used as obviously the steaks can be served any which way, but talk to us about the brisket.
Yeah, so that's the beautiful thing about the product is there's so much versatility, and there's something, in my opinion, for every consumer, chef, et cetera, for any price point. So people think of Wagyu and they think really expensive, and generally speaking, it is significantly more expensive than conventional beef. However, depending on what you're looking to do, there's a place on any menu for Westholme. So brisket specifically is a great item. Obviously, we know it for barbecue. If you're Jewish, then you know it's great for the Jewish holidays. What else can you do with brisket?
Pastrami.
Pastrami is awesome. How about grinds, right? So it makes for amazing grind blend. So putting some Westholme brisket into a blend of grind makes for the most insane, amazing burger because you're getting the flavor, you're getting the fat, you're getting all of that kind of unctuous umami, and it's beautiful. So that's a great opportunity. I've even seen people doing brunch like brisket and eggs. There's like a brisket Diablo.
Like a hash almost?
You can do it as 100% as a hash.
Yeah.
This is more of like a braised. It's delicious, like a spicy brisket with eggs.
Let me tell you, this pastrami was like
Ridiculous.
melt in your mouth, delicious. Like
but it's
the
not like
flavor-
pastrami like we typically talk about, right? Like, is it more like this is more like
we love
a different
pastrami. For anybody who listens to the show knows we talk a lot about pastrami and the New York, Jewish deli experience. This is like the Rolls Royce version of it.
It's
It
next
is
level.
so silky, delicious, amazing.
You asked
Rolling
what's
over
next
here.
on the horizon, we have a lot of stuff going on, including Westholme Grass Fed is going to be coming in the near future in very small production, but it's going to be pretty cool. And then Westholme Wagyu bacon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A beef
Potentially
bacon.
A beef bacon that's like
Wow.
nothing you've ever tasted.
Yep.
And Andrea Wagyu. Like there's some really cool stuff we're working on.
Do you do grinds? Do you do burgers?
That is something we also will be launching this year.
Uh-huh.
So stay tuned. Yeah.
we have the CBS burger at Chef's, the chuck brisket short rib.
Mhm.
That'd be awesome to have some Wagyu or Westholme Wagyu in there.
For sure. That's something Harris and I are talking about on the
Perfect.
side. So yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
And then obviously, barbecue, right? Like, I mean, American barbecue, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah.
I was actually talking with some of the really top, I was in Austin last week and speaking with some of the top barbecue guys. And it was interesting because they said that they love to use Wagyu brisket, and specifically Westholme actually, for their competition barbecue, but not as much in the restaurant. And I said, why? Like, I want the restaurant business, right? That's the volume play. And they said, because, and I loved this, when you're doing competition barbecue, you have to get everything into one bite. It has to be one of the most amazing bite that the judges are ever going to try, right? Like that's what you're trying. It's one bite to blow them away. Whereas in a restaurant, people are coming and you actually want them to eat a lot.
Mhm.
Right.
So I feel like there's got to be some happy medium in there somewhere. Brisket tacos.
Yeah.
Yum.
Barbecue brisket tacos.
But what about yield? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I want to talk about yield because with barbecue, that's like a huge.
Massive yield loss. Yeah, you're looking probably like a 50% yield loss.
Is it the same for Westholme?
No.
Okay.
So one is it doesn't take as long to cook. So that's what the kind of feedback we've gotten from a lot of the pit masters. It's a shorter cook time. But also our products come, as I mentioned earlier, really well trimmed. So it's a traditional 120 packer brisket, but the decal is removed and we trim the belly a good bit. So there's much less waste. And therefore, and part of the reason why it's a shorter cook time. And also, of course, all of the marbling helps. Wagyu in general, it has a much lower melting point, the fat does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so it actually lends itself amazingly well to
Barbecue.
correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
One last question.
Yeah.
Does Westholme Wagyu, is it better served as something that's grilled or done in a pan? Does that level, because I know when I've handled Japanese beef before, the potential for flare-ups if you're on a grill is tremendous because all that fat dripping.
Correct.
How
and we
about
have a similar
Westholme?
experience. So if you're asking me my personal opinion,
Yep.
I will always tell you to cook it in a pan. I kind of get cringy when I walk into a steakhouse and they want to throw it on a stand-up broiler because it's just too dang hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the meat will seize up, right? You need actually a more progressive cooking. Also, to your point, it'll leach the fat out and it'll drip out. Whereas in a pan, it's actually just putting it right back in.
So do you recommend that the chefs cook this in a pan over high heat? Is it something that you want? Do they want to develop a crust on this type of beef?
Yeah, you definitely want to. And it's actually really easy to. The product, because it has those natural sugars coming through, it caramelizes in a beautiful way. So you want to sear it off and then kind of let it go.
What's the proper temp to cook it to?
It's a good question. If you ask Australians, and I'm sort of leaning in that mindset, it's a medium, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that actually gives the fat a way to disperse and sort of render.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we typically, as chefs, will say, let's cook everything rare to medium rare. And it's still delicious, don't get me wrong.
Is it more tough?
It's tougher and you don't get the flavor nuances as much. And so 9 times out of 10, if we're doing a cutting, I'll say, I know you want to cook it rare or medium rare. Let's cut the steak in half and do it one your way and one my way, just so you can taste the difference. And 9 times out of 10, they'll go, oh, yeah, I get it now.
Have you had Westholme in raw applications like tartare or
100%.
in carpaccio?
Makes some of the best.
What's the best cuts for that?
For the carpaccio, people love the eye of round. I'm also a huge fan of our top round, cap off top round, which to me is like a sleeper cool item, really reasonably priced. It's great for carving stations, but also for raw applications, 100%. It's a great price point, and it's marbled like you've never seen a top round marble ever. It's wild. And then as far as tartare, I've had it with everything from tenderloin, strip loin, amazing with hanger steak.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any wrong answer to that question. Our product definitely makes an amazing tartare, or if we're Australian, tartare.
All right, I lied. I have one more question.
Keep them up.
Prime rib, is there such a thing? Are there steamships of this that people can use to do like a slicing station prime rib?
So we don't do a full steamship.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do, these top rounds would be the equivalent, right? Because it's a nice large carving item. Or, of course, a traditional, not traditional prime rib would be a steamship, but I think more common now is people using an export rib or an OP rib. And certainly we do offer this, a bone-in ribeye.
Do you have a favorite Westholme Wagyu steak? Like, is there a ounce? I want to know ounces, cut.
Okay.
What is it that you're going?
Okay, let's see. I think our skirt steak is insanely delicious, as does everybody else, hence why we're usually fully sold on it.
Uh-huh.
I actually really love a filet of ribeye or a Manhattan strip. So a small, call it 6-ouncer, maybe 7.
Like a baseball steak?
Essentially, but it looks like a baseball. So you basically remove the spinalis muscle from the rib, and then you have what's called the heart of the ribeye. And it looks like a filet, but it tastes like a ribeye. And it's absolutely delicious. So it eliminates all of the star fat and kernel fat that sometimes people find too fatty.
Right.
Not my issue at all with it, but I just think this is a really beautiful steak, and it allows you to have a nice thickness to it, so you get a proper cook on it.
Love it.
Because if you try to do a small portion of a ribeye or a strip, you're just going to get
too
paper
flat.
thin, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't perform well. So the same idea with a Manhattan strip is you're taking a whole strip loin, cutting it down the middle, and then cutting steaks that way. So you get something with a bit of high profile to it from a cooking perspective, from a plating perspective as well. And to me, those are just delicious because they're amazing. I mean, they're just amazing.
Are you guys doing any of the cuts in bone-in?
Yeah, sure. We do tomahawks, we do exports, we do short loins, short ribs, bone-in, you name it. I'll tell you what, we did a dinner in Baltimore with the Fells team, and the chef there prepared our oyster blades as they're flat irons, top blade flat iron, and those were amazing too. So kind of on the top of my favorite list as well.
Nice.
I feel like eating a steak
I know.
right now.
I'm like, can we go get steak, please?
Would you like to join me for dinner?
Let's go.
Yes.
Well, this has been a lot of
Amazing.
fun, so informative. We already love the product because we've had it, but now we really love it.
And if you are a chef and you're sitting there and you want to love it, go to chefswarehouse.com or allenbrothers.com and you can purchase all the Westholme Wagyu you want.
Thanks so much, Deb.
Thanks,
Thank
Deb.
you.
Great to have you here.
It's been fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Ingredient Insiders. Subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Ingredient Insiders. You can find the products we discussed in today's episode and more at chefswarehouse.com or your favorite specialty retailer.